So for this track again, I want to compare the final master version from the album with a not really finished mix, and I want to show you some more ideas that I put into this song. At first you can see here in the beginning, well, you can see it over the whole length, it is a pretty dynamic song, and even in the outro and the chorus, which is really, well, it's not a heavy metal tune, but it's played with a hard rock feeling, I think, and even there you can see that there is still a lot of headroom. So the mix that we made and the master that wasn't maxed out, so we still kept a lot of dynamic movement in this track, and I thought that was the perfect solution for the tune and gives it a real distinct sound. So you can see here in the beginning it is like the song is fading in, and that was the idea for the intro. We played and sung it, and the track slowly comes in, the volume gets louder, plus I automated a equalizer for the master bus, and that was basically some kind of a low cut. And since I automated as well some effects, you can in the beginning just hear the tune, which sounds like very far away and thin and tiny, and then the effects get fewer and the low cut gets fewer, the track gets louder, so it slowly comes closer to the listener. And at that point, when I switched off the automation, the track jumps right forward into your face, and that sounds like this. So that was the idea of the intro. After the intro you have a verse, and the tune is not very easy listening, at least that's what I think, in the way I composed the harmonies. So the chords are kind of weird, and I used a lot of slash chords and different way to voice the chords on the guitar or play the bass notes. And also I tried for the whole drum track to keep a not too standard beat, so that was like my main focus for the instruments, that the instruments would play something you wouldn't hear every day. And I also, that you will hear in a moment, I tried to like lean really backwards and play it very relaxed, so that there would be like a strong laid back feeling. And the verse sounds like this.
We are the broken ones. We are the ones that never reached their home.
So, and there I had the guitars. And I had two electric guitars and an acoustic guitar, and together with the bass You can hear it is not a standard comping rhythm. I broke it up with a lot of breaks in between, and there are some weird chords in it, so it would give more of a, I don't know, maybe progressive music feeling. It is very different in the chorus. I have the bass playing a pedal note like so. And the guitars. So there was some different guitars going on here. For example, the main guitar in the chorus sounds like this. And together with the second guitar, which plays like the same phrase but way less distorted. So the main drive guitar has this very fuzzy sound and strong overdrive plus a fuzz sound on it, and the other one is very clean. It's more an overdrive than a distortion, like a driven amp, you could say. But I thought, since I panned one to the left and one to the right, I thought the sound was really cool, because then you have the main guitar, which gives you this drive of a rock sound, and the other one makes the guitar, which has a really interesting part, way better to hear. So both together. Sound like this. Then I had again a guitar in octaves. Which plays a very fine melody that is way in the background. You can almost not hear it in the full track, but I liked the way it gave the whole guitar group here a certain feel, because it is very high, and the notes the guitar plays are some kind of guide notes, and together with the main guitar I thought it would fit really nice. Then I had a guitar that played a pedal note, like pretty similar to the bass. Also played it once with a more heavy distorted sound, and once again with a way cleaner, just slightly overdriven sound, so it would be better audible. And there was one more guitar that played with a also not very distorted, more crunchy sound, and it had a part of the main lead guitar but in another range, and it has also some more ideas from the octaves melody, so that would come out a little more. And all together they sound like this. Oh yeah, and there's one more. In the middle of the chorus, I basically stopped with all the guitars for a tiny fill. So that were the guitars and the bass part, and together with the drums, it would sound like this.
More than renegades, we could be. More than an illusion, we could.
For the outro again, I thought it would be time for a slight change, and since the song was already not basic and a little weird, I thought it would be a great place to go a little further. Therefore, I composed a nice melody and some new chords, and I also let the bass and the drums play some crazy stuff with reverse sounds, reverse cymbals, and a really crazy, not very basic rhythm on the drums. So that would sound like. That was the idea for the guitar melody, and the bass started playing way more notes, play more forward, because the verse was so laid back. I thought that would be the right place to give it some drive. So it plays a 16th line, and the drums had a weird rhythm. It's still in 4/4 time, but I changed the way bass and snare would work in a normal tune, so you can not grasp it as fast, and also the reverse effects and the guitar melody gives it, I think, a really nice feeling for the outro, and that sounds like this.
More than an illusion.
So that is the outro of the song. You could also hear like the synth come in a little more, and the heavy beating of the crash cymbal here in the end, together with the 16th note in the bass. I think that is a pretty cool feeling for the outro, at least the way that I wanted to hear it. That track I want to show right now has actually not been published yet. Also, like all the other tunes, this one is not a final mix. I will just show like the work in progress, and I hope you can be patient with me and still find some helpful things for you in the mixing, composing or arranging process, even though it is not a perfect version of the tune yet. So this song is called Of Love and Harmony, and the idea in general was to produce a track that lead the listener through a variety of emotions, but basically, of course, positive emotions. It is a crossover track that I'm writing for a piano concert, which mixes different styles like electronic elements, but also rock or rock and roll and pop elements and jazz elements with classical piano music. In that track, I have mixed some synth and electronic beat ideas with the idea of playing a pop-like piano, but also with a background of classical piano playing that you can hear in the piano as well. The track starts with a very soft and open and wide sound and a very laid back feel and not all too impressive piano melody, because I wanted it to start really relaxed and like a chill out track, and you would lean back and just enjoy the vibe and the melody or the arrangement of the whole orchestra. That sounds something like this. So that is the idea of the track, which is a little bit longer than you would expect it from a standard pop song. The idea was to like slowly, not just, there is a small intro, but not just an intro, but also like the first part, which is maybe an A part, would evolve slowly and introduce the feel and different sounds, but also be really relaxed and just to enjoy the vibe. In the second part, the song doesn't change a lot, basically keeps the same feeling, and there is a very relaxed and also not too complicated small piano solo, which just continues to show the general vibe and emotion of that song. Therefore, I changed the arrangement a little bit. So as you can see, it starts with a violin and cello, but they stop for the solo part, and I introduce two other synth sounds which give a different vibe, I think, especially because of this like Asian strings sound that sounds a little bit like, I don't know, maybe a sitar or something in that way. And that sounds like this. So you can see there hasn't changed a lot. It is still for the listener to lean back and enjoy the vibe of the tune. One thing I thought was really interesting is the bass line that I played together with the drums, which has a standard and very repetitive 16th groove. The bass plays something that I thought was really interesting and would help the vibe of the tune a lot, and that sounds like this. So you can hear, while everything else in the tune is really down to the earth and very relaxed and steady, the bass line is a little bit like syncopated and offbeat, and it gives a nice counterpart to the rest of the tune. So after like, I don't know exactly how much, but like after 2 or 3 minutes of slowly evolving the tune and for the listener to relax, the song changed because I wanted to give it another feel in the end. So at this part, the piano keeps playing in the one hand the basic vibe that was introduced before, and in the other hand there is a repetitive pattern that brings the listener away from the solo that was played before. Also, the bass line changed to a pedal note. At one point you can see also the synth parts change to another sound and to a small break, and that sounds like this. So, and I played everything softer and softer up to that point where I also paused the bass so that the low synth pad that I introduced would be better audible, and also at that point the mood of the song changes and I wanted that this part is clearly audible. Then again I bring back in the cello and the bass, and with a drum fill and also a very special bass line, a new part continues afterwards. Part I introduced the strings again, especially the violin with that tremolo, and you can see and hear it's a simple line, but I think the effect is really cool because with that tremolo that the violin plays and the ascending notes, which are really easy and just, as you can see, like almost all of these are for a full bar, so it's a really simple line, but the ascending line with the tremolo and also of the volume getting a little bit louder, that gives a real nice tension. The drums change the beat and it is broken up together with the bass. It gives a really interesting feel for that part. On the contrary, the synth pad has a pedal note mostly which lies and gives, like, again, a counterpart to the broken up bass and drums, and together with the strings I think there is a feeling of tension building up, and that was what I wanted to achieve in that part. Also, while the piano keeps in the left hand a pretty similar to the drums and bass broken up and very short and staccato comping pattern, in the right hand the piano would play a fast and repetitive melody line which is also ascending, pretty similar to the violin, and that together like showed a build up which in the end leads to a new part, which is all in all the outro that has again a basic feeling that stays the same for the whole outro, but 2 or 3 slight changes that would keep the song attractive for the listener and also showed different emotions, and that was what I wanted for the outro part. So here is again that ascending line, this time with the piano. that is the build up, and for the outro part I at first introduced the idea of the outro in the piano and therefore changed the drum sound slightly. It is a little bit lower and darker, but also loses some of the punchiness. So therefore later on I introduced the drum kit I used before, or let's say the drum sound I used before, together with the new drum sound, so it would keep that low and fat sound but also make it better audible when all the instruments play together. And at first there is different synth sounds and a slightly different drum sound, and I introduced the piano idea, which is the idea of playing big arpeggios all over the place. Then halfway through that introduction, the bass comes back in, the drums changes slightly, and then also build up for introducing the actual and complete part of the outro. That sounds like that. So here we have all the instruments together, and there is my Asian sound and a lower synth part which plays longer notes. So I programmed it the way that the synth notes would get some kind of motion. I have the pads, I have cello and violin playing long notes, and these are all parts that would lay a background and give a relaxed feeling, and the drums and piano are a little bit more busy and upfront. I thought that was sounding really good, but at that point it didn't sound to me like that was the way I wanted to end the tune. Even though I kept that part, like I said, to the end, I wanted to change it for another kind of view of the piano because I wanted it to be more in the center. So what I did at first, I cut like almost all of the instruments. The synth parts would all stop and not be reintroduced. The bass plays on a little but then would make a pause except for the last note. And the string sounds would also stop, but not completely. I wanted, like I said, to change the outro a little bit more and keep it interesting for the listener. So here the strings play mostly long notes, then they have a small break and they come back in with a very staccato and accented line. But before that there was a small break, and then the piano would also change a little bit the way it played, and also I changed the vibe of the song, because before I mostly sticked to one idea sound-wise and evolved around that one idea. But in the back I wanted it to be really going through all the different emotions, and therefore I modulated a lot and took a lot of different ideas of the chords and played a really interesting arpeggio so that it would be like an emotional journey. Also, in that break, the drum kit has the two parts, so the one with the lower end and the one with more kick, and at that part I stopped the one with heavy low end and went back to the other one, which I then cut really tiny with an equalizer so that it would be more like the idea of the rhythm, but the piano would even get more into the focus. And then the two strings came back with the accented melody, and that changed the feel again. So at that part, the two string instruments would play this very staccato and accented line, which I think gives a nice counterpart to the piano, which has this very wide and open arpeggio sounds. And for the end, I changed the arpeggio slightly, I changed the groove for less notes, and the strings at first keep on playing the staccato line, but then as the piano goes down in a long descending line, and for the long outro or ending chords, they also change again for at first like a 16th offbeat line that would evolve into long notes that work as an accompaniment for the last chords and especially for the last beat where the bass comes back in. So like I said, this is not a final version, it's not a final mix, it's just the basic composition, and I hope you could find some interesting parts in it. And if you're interested of how this works out, check out my homepage. There I will show the whole concert for the piano tunes as soon as I'm finished with it.